Welcome to Mark's Motivational Podcast and our Author Tuesday episode. So I'm delighted to be joined by another great author tonight, Joe Moore. It's great to welcome Joe. She's got a lot of history there with book writing and a lot of stuff to share on the show as well. I'm hoping she can show her books and definitely just go out and buy them. That's what we're here for to hope to get sales for Joe. So Joe, thanks a lot for joining me today. It's great to meet you.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's great to meet you too.
Yeah, yeah. So we might start off the podcast if you wouldn't mind telling the listeners a little bit of background about yourself and your book writing. I know you mentioned on your bio about children's books and reading to your daughter. So do you want to talk about that? I think it's a great place to start.
Yeah, absolutely. My mum says I loved books when I was younger. I definitely loved reading when I was a teenager. But when I had my first daughter, who is going to be, she's 21 already. I think she's going to be 22 this year.
Yeah,
So she just loved reading books, and I loved reading books to her. It was like my favorite time of the day, and it was the same right the way to my youngest daughter now. And story time was just our favorite. And when my youngest daughter was in hospital, one of the things we always had to make sure we had with us was books so that we could
mm,
just read and read and read. And it was really frustrating actually when we would come across a book that we didn't like. Um, we had a big, huge bookshelf, and whenever I would go out, I'd always end up buying books. We got books for Easter, we got books for birthdays. So I just always thought about writing my own book. I loved poetry. When I was younger, I wanted to be an author, but I kind of moved past that. So I just started writing little bits and pieces, but I was really busy, so nothing got picked back up. And eventually I just thought if I was actually a teacher, and when I was toying with leaving teaching, I thought, do you know what? If I do this, I have to publish at least one of my books. I just have to give it a go. And yeah, I did. So,
yeah,
and now I have three, and I've got another one, secret one in the making. So I
right.
always keep them a bit quiet. I've had a bit of a gap.
Mm,
Um, it's something that's a bit different. It's actually not part of this collection, the book that I think I will look at publishing next. It's something moving away a little bit, and then I'll go back to the stories that I've drafted for this particular collection. Yeah.
right. And what are the books? What's the name of your books, Joe? Do you have out at the moment?
Yeah, so I can show you the books. Would you like to
Right.
see them?
Please,
Yeah.
yeah, that'd be great. Thanks.
So first book that I published is Bertie the Very Blind Bat. All my books are about differences. So the
Hmm.
collection is called the Bit Different Collection.
Yeah.
It was just something I always wanted to do. It was an idea that came to me, and I thought, right, okay, I'm going to roll with that. So Bertie is blind, but each of my characters actually also have another difference, kind of to show that we all have differences. Some you
Hmm.
see, some you know, some you don't.
Yeah.
So if I hold him really close, I don't know if you can see, but he
I can
actually
see
has
that.
two different coloured eyes.
Yeah.
Um,
Great. Yeah.
and so that's called heterochromia. And the reason he has that is I actually have two different coloured eyes. So I've got this one's blue and
Yeah.
this one's brown. I don't know how clear that is.
Yeah.
My second book is Crosby, the Not-So-Snappy Crocodile. So he hasn't got a physical difference. He's actually just different in his personality. He's not accepted because, he doesn't conform to a stereotype.
Hmm.
Nobody ever really notices. But one of his spikes, I don't know if you can see, it's
I can see that.
actually different to the rest. So a
Oh
little bit
wow. Yeah.
deformed.
Class. Yeah.
Yeah, no, no
Very
one
good.
picks up on that one.
Yeah.
And then my most recent one is Floss the Wobbly Flamingo.
Hmm.
She's a personal favourite. But she
Yeah.
shouldn't have favourites, but I do. So she has weak legs. She was born with weak legs. She wears splints on her legs. And her other differences are actually, slightly different than the other two. So she has a sparkly beak
Oh,
and
very good. Yeah.
rainbow
Yeah.
wings. Um, have an obsession with rainbows, so it's probably why I love her so much. So yeah, there's plenty more drafted, all about differences. But yeah, I need to get going with them, Mark. I need to
Great
get
stuff.
moving with them.
No, they're absolutely brilliant. And who does the artwork? Do you do that yourself as well, Joe? Like the covers?
Absolutely not.
Okay,
I
yeah,
would not know how to do digital illustrations. I can draw a little bit.
mm,
So I had the same illustrator for the first two books.
great, yeah,
She's Michelle Gemmell,
hmm,
and she actually had a card design business.
okay,
So it was something she'd never done before.
yeah,
And then the illustrator for my most recent book is a lady called Emily Clark, and I worked really closely with her. Probably again why Floss is a bit special. I had a bit more input, and I was able to like draw sketches of what I would like and
brilliant,
send them to
yeah.
her, and she would bring those to life. So yeah,
Yeah, it's great when you meet an artist like that, isn't it? That you both click, like the excuse me, they
absolutely.
know exactly what you want.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's just good
yeah,
teamwork. It's smoother.
yeah,
Um, yeah, you just feel so much more part of the process, and I think it makes it a little bit more special.
brilliant. Yeah, yeah. Would you like to maybe read a little bit of your book for people to give people a taste of your work, if you're happy to do that, Joe? Please.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there is a chorus part at the end of every story. So right at the end page, there's like a summary,
Right.
and it says, "We are all a bit different, and the world would be bleak if everyone was the same,
I
not
love that.
special or
Yeah.
unique."
Yeah.
Um, and then I'll read you the chorus of my Floss book, not because she's my favourite, but because she's the closest book to me. So the children love this because when I go into schools, I
Mm,
teach them the chorus before I read the book. And they join in. So her chorus is, "I'm flamboyant and fabulous. My legs may be weak, but my wings are sensational. And check out my beak."
wow, that's brilliant. I love that. That's great.
Good. I'm glad you like it.
Well done. That's brilliant. And I just say your books tackle important themes like disability. So how important do you think that is for children when they're reading these books, Joe?
I just think it's so important.
Yeah.
Um, I One of the inspirations actually for these books was I have a chronic pain condition, and when my daughter was really little, I just thought she needs at some point to have this explained to her, but in a gentle way that isn't going to scare her, isn't going to worry her. And wouldn't it be great if there was a book, a children's book that could do that?
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was my inspiration. But then that made me think, parents and teachers could do that with their classes to make sure they're encouraging inclusion and acceptance and empathy with the children. And also for children that are a bit different and do have uh, perhaps disabilities or medical conditions, I think it's important for them to be represented and be able to have a book where they see a character that, you know, is similar to themselves.
Mm,
What's really exciting, and this is quite fresh information, and it's well on the way now. So I've just had a meeting today, actually, this morning, is that the Royal National Institute for the Blind have reached out. They've seen my Bertie the Blind Bat book, and they are actually producing that in Braille
brilliant.
to sell as part of their charity. So that's brilliant. It's going to be in the right hands, read by children
Mm,
who want to be seen, want to be represented in a story, and
yeah.
they can read it if they if Braille is their form of communication. Then they can read it themselves as well, rather than have it just be read to them. So I think that's special.
Yeah, that's really, really nice that your books are being used like that. That's very heartwarming for you. Yeah,
Yes,
definitely. Yeah,
definitely.
yeah, yeah, great. And yeah, thanks a lot for sharing that. That's brilliant. And where can people get your books? I know obviously Amazon and all the usual places, but do you have like any your books in any bookstores for people that live near you. Whereabouts do you live yourself, Joe? Sorry,
I live in Preston in
Preston.
Lancashire,
Okay.
so northwest, and northwest England. They're not in bookstores, you know. Well, it's a funny story. So I haven't reached out to bookstores. It's just something, I'm busy. I always have the intention of doing it. It's self-publishing and doing your own marketing is a full-time job in
Yeah.
itself.
You know.
And I have a full-time job, Mark.
Yeah.
So, it's difficult. So I haven't contacted any bookstores myself. And I think now I'm feeling a bit more confident. Now I've got 3 books, it's something I will do. But when I actually Google my books and I do a quick Google search, I'm like, oh, this store is selling my book, or it's all online. And it's online in Waterstones. And then I noticed it was online in Barnes and Noble, which is like I think the American version of Waterstones. So it has just appeared in places, but Amazon is the platform that I sell the books on, unless I'm going to, into schools or I'm doing
Yeah.
events, and then I will sell in person rather than works
Yeah.
out a bit better for me that way.
Right. Yeah, that's brilliant. Because you want to share your links for, I can put in the show notes as well after the show,
Yeah,
Joe.
yeah,
For
absolutely.
people to find your work. That's great. Thank you. And your characters are brilliant. Like the ones you shared there, they're absolutely brilliant. Well done. And can you give us the process you use? When you're creating these characters, they're just really really good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a bit different for all of them. The books that I've published, so the first book that I actually wrote for this series is not one that I've published yet. So it's a bit of a hard decision sometimes going, right, okay, which one should I publish next? So Floss, for example, the flamingo, I published her next because the other 2 were male characters. And I thought, oh, it'd be nice to have a female one next. So I have an image in my head of what I would like. And as I said, the first 2 books, I had like less involvement in the process. So I could give the illustrator a bit of an overview of what I would like the character to look like. And then I kind of relied on her to bring that to life and have her own touch, add her own touch. But Floss, like I say, I was able to draw her. I had a clear image in my head of what I needed her to look like. And then it's like name selecting, which is great fun. I've probably been through more baby naming books now than I have when I was having children.
Yeah.
Um, and the name has to kind of suit the title. So like alliteration. So Floss the flamingo with the F's, and Crosby the crocodile, and Bertie the very blind bat. So yeah, I think that's it really. And I sometimes think of a disability and medical condition first,
Yeah.
and then I'll create my character in my book based on that. Other times I'll think of the character first. And I do like to think about the animals that, naturally flamingos have great balance.
Yeah.
So it made sense to have a flamingo that couldn't balance very well. Bats, there's the myth that bats are blind. So I thought it'd be great to do a blind bat. And Crosby, I don't know where the crocodile came from. Um, yeah, I don't. Crosby just randomly was one that I wrote after I'd published my first Bertie book, and I already had loads of books drafted, and
Mm.
Crosby I just started from scratch. So it's all been different, really, the process of creating the characters.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because how do you ensure that they resonate with children? Really, isn't it? It's to make sure they resonate. Really, isn't it?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
yeah, for that reason, they've got
Yeah.
to kind of be cute. They've
Yeah.
got to be. It was really hard. Bertie's a blind bat, and
Mm.
bats are only really awake in the dark.
Yeah.
So it was really hard to get that contrast of Bertie still being visible in the books and it looking dark without him kind of blending too much into the background. Floss, and Crosby, they're just really vibrant, and that was something again, don't judge a book by its cover, but you do. I used
Yeah,
to go into a shop, and the first thing I would go to is a book with a nice cover and vibrant. I would then read the blurb, and if it sounded rubbish or something that I didn't think my children would like to read, I would pop it back. But I think most people do go to a cover first, so having the character prominent on the front just felt right.
yeah, no, it's great. That's great. Yeah, yeah, because you can tell by them they're really well thought out, like the characters, and especially the ones a little different. Like only for you pointed that out, like it just makes so
Yeah,
much sense.
yeah.
That's great. Yeah, yeah,
I've got each of the characters from one book are actually hidden in the next book as well. So some children spot that right away.
yeah.
Other children don't know until I go into the schools and I
Mhm.
tell them, and I'm like, oh, you have to look for the back character in the Crocodile book. And
Yeah,
so it's just something that's a bit more exciting.
great.
Um,
Yeah,
Sometimes with the books I'm going to do next, I think, oh my goodness, that's not going to work. You can't have a flamingo hiding in this book because a flamingo wouldn't be there.
mhm.
Um, so I've made a bit of a rod for my own back here. I've got to make that work.
Yeah, yeah. And what age group are they for? These books for
Um,
parents that are listening and watching?
so do you know what? Choosing the age group is really difficult
It is. Yeah,
because
yeah,
I read so like Julia Donaldson books like Stickman and the Gruffalo. I would read them to my daughters when they were really young.
yeah,
And they loved learning the chorus bits and joining in. Then we'd go to the theatre and watch the live production, when they were a bit older. And whereas I have friends that didn't read those with the children until the children were 6 or 7 and were able to kind of join in and read themselves. So it makes it really difficult. So I have promoted them as age 2 to 7. I think
yeah,
the Bertie Bat book is actually it's a little bit shorter, so it's a bit more suitable for younger children because they get bored really quick, don't
yeah,
they? They want to
yeah,
move and fidget. So I think that's more suitable. But I've been into schools, I've been into nurseries, I've been into preschools, and they've all been well received. A few of the books, sorry, a few of the schools that I've been to and I've kind of returned to with each book, they've put the whole school in, like 300 children from year
right,
7 right the way up to year
brilliant.
6. So
Yeah,
that's age 4, sometimes preschool, age 3 up to age 11. And they've done that because they say the messages are important, it doesn't matter what age. And
yeah,
actually, the 11-year-olds have quite enjoyed the presentations that I've done and the book reads, or they say they have. They
yeah.
say
So
they
good.
have, but maybe
Yeah,
not.
a good mixture of ages there. Well done. That's great
Yeah.
because yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for that. And how do you envision kind of really ties on nicely to the next question? How do you envision your books serve as a tool for parents to have a conversation, like discuss sensitive topics really to their children when they're reading your book with them? That makes
Yeah,
sense.
I, that was something again that I was doing with my children.
Yeah,
So there wasn't a books necessarily books like this, but there were books about kindness and friendship, and a book. I remember a book that we used to read all the time. I think it was my eldest daughter's book, and I never get rid of books. So we had them in boxes, and when my youngest was
yeah,
born, was little, we would read them to her, and that had a really good message about. It was a bit like The Boy Who Cried Wolf, so we would talk about the message in that book as well. And I would like to think I know that some of the teachers in the classes have used these books as a resource for talking about sensitive topics.
right.
One school in particular, which is one of the highlights of my author journey, it nearly made me well. I shed a little tear because it was overwhelming. It was a surprise, but they actually made a whole wall display in their school main hall, and they got every child. So I think it was just over 300 children, and they got every child to write on a tiny feather, cut out feather, what made them sensational, and then they put the feathers together to make the rainbow wings with a big flamingo in the middle. So that was really lovely. And I would just like to think that other parents, they read the book and then they have that discussion. A friend of mine contacted me to say she'd read Crosby with her son. I think he was 6 or 7. And she said it made her really emotional. And they had a discussion afterwards because he said, so in the book, Crosby doesn't feel accepted, but bit of a spoiler towards the end. Obviously, you can
Yeah.
imagine children's book, nice ending. So he found his people, and that's exactly what the little boy said to his mum. So it's not a quote from the book. The little boy said to his mum, "Crosby's just like me, mum," and he said, "It takes a while, but then eventually you find your people." I love getting messages like that. So yeah, I hope on my website I actually have some free resources like colouring in pages and activity
Right.
sheets
Yeah.
that children can fill in. And I also have a discussion page for each book that prompts teachers or parents the kind of questions that they could ask the children whilst they're reading the book or after they're reading the book. So people can use them if they want to download them.
Great, because I can share your website on the show notes for people to do that. That's really helpful. Yeah,
Yeah.
great stuff. I'll be looking forward to buying these for my own kids as well. So you,
Oh,
you've definitely got
well,
another
I hope you
customer
like
here.
them.
Yeah, great stuff. And we probably have your future projects as well. Joe, you mentioned having stack of part drafted stories waiting to be brought to life. Can you
Yeah.
give us a sneak peek at them, please, Joe? Yeah.
Well, can I? So, no.
No. No.
No is the
Yeah.
answer. I'm
Yeah.
thinking, do you know,
Yeah.
should I do that? They are, there's so many in the
Yeah.
different animals each time, different differences.
Yeah.
They're all young characters, and yeah, I don't know which one actually no, I have in my head now got an idea of which one is next, but because I'm focusing on a book from that isn't from this series, I have kind of put that to one side. I was trying to do both at the same time, Mark. They were both drafted, and I was like, "Oh, I'll do a bit of this one," and then I was getting an idea for the other one and drafting that in. Just you know, sometimes really late at night, I've got the notes page on my phone, like doing it in the dark, trying to write or voice record because it's just come to me. And then I thought, I need to put this to one side, focus on one, and I chose to focus on something that I haven't done before that's just taking a little bit longer. So fingers crossed that comes into fruition. Fruition? I don't know.
Yeah.
It comes to life. It
Yeah.
happens.
That
It
sounds
gets
about right.
published.
That sounds about right. Anyway.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll blame
Yeah.
the accent. It's the
Yeah.
accent. But yeah, so hopefully I get that finished. I'm almost there. But then the process of getting it published, especially if you're self-publishing, it just takes such a long time. It's really hard. It's really hard, and you end up questioning everything that you've done and second guessing yourself, and you've got to go through editors and get your illustrator, and it costs a lot of money. That's
Yeah.
the other thing. So much money, like illustrators for children's books that are 32 pages in length can cost between £2,000 and £5,000.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, you've got to be in it. You've got to be in it and give it your all. So we'll see. We'll see what happens next. But yeah, lots of secrets. I like to keep them surprised.
Oh yeah. That's good.
Sometimes I
Yeah.
surprise myself and change my mind. So that's
Yeah.
why I think I won't say what it is because I could change my mind and do the other
Definitely.
one.
Yeah. No, that's great. Thanks a lot for sharing. Everything is great. And can I just ask you, what have you find the best way to kind of market your books as well? I know it's good for going into schools and obviously obviously online like with Amazon, but what other ways have you found the best ways to kind of market your books?
Social media. So I had a personal Facebook page which I use, but then I've had to set up a group one, and then Instagram I rarely use, and I have had to learn a lot. It's just you're learning all the time. So Instagram is what I use the most, and you just have to hope you're reaching the right people with that. It's really hard because you kind of have to post something every couple of days, and some days you don't have anything to post. Some days I'm like, oh, what am I going to post today? Which
Yeah.
image, or which one's relevant to the day? Like, for example, today is actually, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, it's 10 to 10. I've only got to midnight to stick this post on, because May the 12th is actually a day for some of the chronic illnesses. So it's so relevant. It's something that I have, it's something that inspired the book. So today I can do a good post. Um, a lot of the authors that I now talk to, who I love, by the way. So, authors around the world that have just become some of my closest friends, because they all support each other. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
a lot of them have said, oh, TikTok's the way forward. And I thought, oh gosh, don't give me something else to learn. And believe it or not, you might be able to tell, I don't know, but I'm terrified on camera. And TikTok, a lot of TikTok is, recording yourself. And I gave it a whirl, Mark. I'm not going to lie. I've not committed. I need to learn how to do it. I've set up a TikTok account, and occasionally I think, oh, best check it or best post. But that's something I'm just going to get more confident with. So social media is basically the platform I use to market, and then obviously hope for word of mouth.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, because I'm with you there with the going into schools. It's a great way to do, and you get some great questions even from kids. Do you find that like when
Oh,
you go into like about being an author, and the questions can be
yeah,
great, don't they?
they're amazing, and it's sometimes it's so gorgeous, especially even when it's the young ones, and you say, I often do like I'm there for 45 minutes, an hour, and I do a bit of a presentation and teach them
Nice.
some actions and get them moving, and like we have really good fun. I think they do. And I'll say at the end, what kind of themes do you think? What's the book about? And the answers that you get are so gorgeous. Like, they'll put their hand up and they'll say it's very special to be unique, or they'll tell you something that's different about them, and how it's nice that their peers look after them or their teachers look after them. So it is really lovely. I do get some extremely funny questions. So
Yeah.
one of the best ones, or not even questions, just statements. So one of the girls put a hand up and said, "Do you live two streets down with the green door?" And I was like, "Oh my goodness!" Like, yes, I do. And it
Yeah.
just turned out she'd seen me when she'd been to a relative's house.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
A couple of times. I mean, I must smell really nice. This is a bit of compliment. Some of the little ones like come and hang on to me, and a few times I've had, you smell really nice. You smell really nice, and you're like, oh, thank you. So yeah, you get some really random things, but gorgeous, gorgeous answers. When I go into schools.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Great. No, I really appreciate you coming on, Joe. Sharing your great books and like your story of being a fantastic author and with a brilliant message you have for everybody. So thanks a million, and I really wish you all the success going forward with everything you do.
Thank you, and thank you so much for having me. And
Yeah.
I wish myself all the success in the, in the
Yeah.
world, Mark, because this has just been amazing, and I want to just keep doing it and doing it and doing it. So, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, because this is kind of a motivational podcast as well. If you were kind of to give people a motivational tip to kind of for authors or anybody um that kind of that's inspirational to help people like to whatever art it is, what would you message would you give them?
basically, if you have a dream, and it might be something that's never going to happen, but you're never going to know that's never going to happen if you don't try. So I would just say, try and pursue your dreams. Like, it's not definitely a no. It's not definitely not going to happen. give
Yeah,
give it a go, give everything a go, and give it some heart. Yeah.
right. That's brilliant, Joe. Thank you so much for that, and thanks a lot for
You're
being a great guest. So make sure you share all your email, not your email, sorry, your website and your all your social medias, and I'll put them on the show notes. Okay.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I will do.
Thank you. So
Oh,
thanks everyone for watching and listening to Mark's motivational podcast with Joe Moore on the podcast today. So make sure to check out all the links I'm going to share for Joe's work on the show notes and buy them books. And thanks a lot for listening. Thank you again, Joe.
thank you.
Thank you. Bye.